What's going on, guys? It's Mirwin. Today we're going to dissect my song, Dear Child. So if you guys haven't been watching the YouTube channel, we have our series Dissect, inspired by a podcast on Spotify, where I kind of talk a little bit about the production, the lyrics, and the backstory behind all the music I make. Today we're going to be doing my song, Dear Child, off of my new album, Strangers in the Dark. If you guys haven't listened to this song or the album, it's out now. We got a link in the description. Definitely encourage you guys to check that out. Otherwise, we're just going to get straight into the video today. For every episode of Dissect, we have 6 questions we ask about every song. First question we're going to be asking is, what's the heart behind the song? So for this song, Dear Child, and honestly, I was thinking about this question specifically and just kind of the song in general while I was just, getting ready here in the shower a little bit. And when I was thinking about it, I really just had a little bit of trouble of remembering what really kind of prompted me initially wanting to write this song and kind of talk about this concept. Even just, thinking about making the beat and the sample, I don't really remember there being really anything where I'm like, oh, I should talk about this or whatever. It was really just kind of one of those moments where I'm like, okay, this is what I need to talk about, and I just kind of went with it and didn't really have any super big prompt of like, this is really on my heart, I've really been thinking about this lately, I want, whatever. So that being said, kind of this whole song, you listen to it, it's kind of just a letter to, kind of that inner child or, my childhood self. So I did kind of have a little bit of an idea of doing a sequel to Dear Family, which was a song off of my last album, Uphill From Here. So I did kind of have that idea loosely. So I think maybe as I was thinking about it, in the shower, that might have been what the main inspiration was. Is just, I was like, I think I want to do a sequel to it. And, I kind of just wrote down some titles. And I think Dear Child just really stood out to me. Or, it was kind of the main one that stuck. So that just kind of, I just kind of followed that creative direction. And, just kept going and seeing where it led. And then we got the song. So that being said, kind of the heart behind the song is kind of, like you said, that whole idea of like an open letter to my childhood self or, that inner child. Kind of really big themes throughout this song is just, growing up and, kind of the changes we go through growing up, as humans and, all that stuff. I think a lot of the ideas in the song are kind of, some of the ideas are kind of like, I think we naturally, especially as like Americans and just, the society we live in, we think naturally that every year, you see this around New Year's every time, new year, new me, we think every year we're progressively getting better. But I think something that I have thought about, and even maybe while I was writing this, I was thinking about is I think there are sometimes things in our past that were actually better than our current selves. But, just because of, we think of like, the iPhone, every new edition is better than the last one just because it's newer. I think we kind of apply that mentality to ourselves a lot where it's like, oh, I'm a year older, I'm better than I was when I was, whatever age it is. But something that I kind of was thinking about, I guess, a little bit while I was writing this, kind of, as I'm growing up, and comparing myself to like, when I was younger and things like that, are there things that maybe were better about me or that I have lost? I think that was a big thing that I was thinking about while I was writing it and I was diving more into this concept is, are there things that when I was a younger or a child or growing up that I've lost about myself that I need to regain? So I think that was something that I was really thinking about while I was writing it. But, in the beginning, kind of talk about, say goodbye to my innocence, all these different kind of ideas of like, growing up and losing things that I think, we weren't meant to lose or, that we have just lost just through life and stuff like that. So that was kind of the heart behind the song, just kind of processing all those things. And then, just kind of, through that kind of message or concept of, writing it to my younger self. And I think a lot of people, hopefully, as you listen to the song, this kind of idea resonates with you, and, just kind of the message and stuff like that. So that was kind of the heart behind the song. This is probably one of my favorite songs on the album just because, again, how it comes from such a personal place for me. But yeah, that's the heart behind the song. Next question here is going to be, what's your favorite part lyrically? This song, I think I've mentioned it in a couple of videos I think I mentioned it in the Deconstructed, that this second verse here in this song is probably my favorite verse on the entire album. So, definitely encourage you guys to go check that out. Listen to the whole album. It means a lot to me. I appreciate it if you go choose to do that. But this verse here in the second verse of this song, I think it's definitely my favorite verse in the whole album. I got a lot of verses that I really love, a lot of lines I really love. But I think the second verse is where I really, as I was writing it, I was really like cutting to the core of the concept and like really getting into like me personally. I think there's a lot. I really like the first verse as well. I think there's a lot of good stuff in there, and I'll probably touch on some of the lyrics I like in there as well. But the second verse is like far and beyond, for me personally, one of my favorites. I think some of the things that I really like about the second verse is just how I was able to do. I did change the flows up a little bit. If you listen to the song, there's a beat change. You got the first beat, which is like mostly just the strings and the vocals, and then the second beat where it's got the vocal sample and all the drums and stuff like that. But I think it's a little bit different where it's like slower pace. The drums are maybe a little more, just a little slower, and it's not really like a really fast tempo beat. So I was able to do some stuff on that I think, definitely was a little bit harder to write to, but I'm really happy with what it came out with. So we'll just go through, we'll just talk about some of these lyrics that I really like. The first line here in the first verse, took my first breath the day Diana laid to rest, so legends never die, we just multiply. That's a line I really like, and I knew something I like doing in my music anyway is just starting, kind of cutting the intro, just really stewarding the listener's time well. So I knew I really just wanted to, cut to the chase, so the song really just kind of hits you right when it starts. But this line, legends never die, we just multiply, kind of a reference, it is a reference to a line Jay-Z says, which I believe is the exact same, legends never die, we just multiply. I forget what the first line before in that bar is that like connects it, but I knew I wanted to do something different. I believe his take on it is very similar, that someone passed away in the same day he was born. I forget who it was specifically, but I knew I wanted to do something kind of, again, tying in with the concept of growing up in childhood. I think it fit really well. So this is a real thing. My birthday, September 6th, 1997. Princess Diana's funeral was the same day. Televised, all that stuff. So took my first breath the day Diana laid to rest, so legends never die, we just multiply. I thought that was really dope, just to be able to, again, I always love being able to do my own take on something another artist has done, just kind of tying their work to mine, pay homage and honor them. Jay-Z, obviously one of the GOATs. So that was the line I really liked, probably my favorite in the first verse. Just going through some of the stuff that in the first verse I think really helps tie in the messaging of, kind of the theme and things like that. This section here I think was, is probably, again, one of my favorite sections. There are two sections here I'll touch on in the first verse. I thought my parents were perfect and my heart would never break. I thought 10 o'clock was late, but now I stay up every day. Had a smile on my face, but something took its place. I guess it's safe to say that times have changed. So I really like that line. I think, again, just some of the stuff, just really putting perspective on, again, even just the simple thing of, like, when I was, in 4th grade, 5th grade, whatever, 10 o'clock would have been like, holy crap, this is like, I'm up so late right now. Whereas now it's like, if I went to bed at 10, that'd be like, that's like crazy early for me, and then, just kind of talking about those, when you're a kid, you think about things a certain way. Now they're different. I thought my parents were perfect and my heart would never break, all that stuff. So really like that section there. Also, this line here, I've spent my whole damn life running from my youth, but left something back there, and deep down I know it's true. I guess that's what I'm chasing when I step into the booth. Who would have thought I'd become friends with a noose? So again, I really like this section, the first verse as well. I think, again, it's cool. The thing I like about it is, again, just kind of tying into that idea of trying to get back what you've lost, different parts of yourself, your personality, things that maybe, you're embarrassed about or you thought weren't, you shouldn't be proud of. I guess that I'm tying that kind of idea into me making music. Kind of that's what I'm chasing whenever I step into the booth and record. And I really like the line, who would have thought I'd become friends with a noose, kind of tying into my struggle with like suicidal thoughts and things like that. Again, just kind of showing that, when I was a kid, I thought life would go this way. This is how it's gone. Kind of just showing that, again, two sides of the coin type of thing. And then we'll talk about the second verse a little bit here. Some of the stuff I really like. Again, first line in the second verse, we'll probably camp on this question longer, but this first line in the second verse, all the trauma that I've been through hits harder when the rent's due, all my memories 12 and under, I'm still eating off that menu. To me, every time I hear that, I'm like, that's a crazy bar. And for me, I think that's something I'm super proud of. And again, it's something why I really like this song. I think that bar, when I wrote it, I was like, damn, this is crazy. Like this, like I think just the idea, you know, again, talking about all the things we've been through, you know, all the trauma that I've been through, hits harder when the rent's due, kind of tying in the things I've gone through, and then to where I'm currently and growing up as an adult. You know, kind of in the first verse, we're talking a lot about, you know, as being as a child, whereas now this was kind of connecting it. This verse is kind of connecting those ideas more to being an adult. And then all my memories 12 and under, I'm still eating off that menu. So, you know, kind of the idea of having a kids menu, you know, you go to IHOP, Denny's, or I don't know, places like that where they have a specific kids menu. You know, and it's like 12 and under, 13 and under, different things like that. So this one, I'm kind of taking that concept and idea and tying it into like my memories and, you know, quote unquote, the good old days, the good times, all that stuff. So all my memories 12 and under, I'm still eating off that menu. I really like those lines. I think they're crazy bars. And then some of the stuff I really like also as well. I think the other section I really like, because, you know, we'll try and speed up here and move on to the next questions. Remember, kitty, college plans? Now I'm the man. Back then I draw with crayons, needed my dad to hold my hand. But then I started to grow up, and you never seemed to show up. So maybe I'll stop at Target and buy me some Crayolas. So I like that section. I think it's really cool. I think, again, just tying into, the growth kind of as time goes on. When I was a kid, you know, I was really artistic. You know, I was drawing all the time. Loved art classes, my favorite class in school. But even just, you know, I went into middle school and I just kind of stopped doing it. You know, art class was the smallest elective of all my classes. You know, there was like 8 or 10 of us every year. So it was just something I kind of, you know, maybe was embarrassed by or grew out of. And then that line of, but then I started to grow up and you never seemed to show up, kind of talking about that inner child, that inner, you know, imagination, creativity, all that stuff. And then, so maybe I'll stop at Target and buy me some Crayolas. And then that kind of tying into the line, back then I draw with crayons. So again, just kind of tying into the idea of, you know, there are things that I used to have about myself. I'm trying to get those back, stuff like that. We'll move on to the next question because, you know, I could camp on that one forever, or at least for a long time. So next question here is going to be, what's your favorite part musically? For this one, my favorite part musically is, and again, I've touched on this on the deconstructed video, which, you know, check that one out as well. I think I really like the strings and the reverb sample in the first verse. But I think I really like the drums in the second half, in the beat switch. I think there's some really cool drum like rhythms and just, you know, what I did with the percussion and stuff that was really different than a lot of the other beats on this album. So those are probably my two favorite elements musically. Next question here is going to be, how long did it take you to make? This one I think was not too long. I think the hardest parts were probably just the writing process, you know, figuring out what the balance of elements, you know, where do I need to add drums in the first half, all that stuff, and like just kind of fleshing out the song idea. So it probably didn't take too long, probably just like a month or two. Yeah, probably not too bad. Next question, was there any musical inspiration for the song? For this question, I don't really think there was a ton of musical inspiration, other than just, you know, I always say this, but the samples themselves, you know, I'm always trying to draw from the samples. I think I will say for the second half, as I was digging specifically that for the sample that I ended up using for that song, I was on TrackLib and I found, you know, that sample and I was like, I recognize this. So it was the sample that was used in a Brockhampton song on their album Roadrunner. And I was like, oh, that's dope. You know, I can make a song using the same sample they used. They just used it as an outro, and I was like, okay, you know, I want to do that. So I was kind of inspired by that, of just being like, I think that's always been a big part of hip-hop is, you know, sampling and even just sampling the same song as someone else. You know, that's just a cool aspect of hip-hop that doesn't really happen a lot anymore, you know, because otherwise, you know, you get confused to, like, copying and stuff like that. But I thought it was really cool to be able to do my own take on the sample and, you know, slow it down, all that stuff. So I thought that was really cool as well. Last question here is going to be, what was the hardest part of making the song? I think the hardest part of making the song was, and you'll probably maybe get this just from me talking about the lyrics so much, was trying to get to that place of, you know, getting the lyrics like really sharp, if that makes sense, you know. So I really wanted, you know, the concept, you know, obviously is just me talking to my inner child, you know, me talking about all the things I've gone through and growing up and how maybe they didn't pan out the way I wanted, trying to get back to who I was as a kid, different things like that. Getting back to that mentality at least. So I think the hard part was I knew that was a really powerful concept and idea. So I wanted the execution to be really good. So I think really taking my time and pushing myself to not just, all right, I got these words written down in my notes. That's the verse. That's what it is. And really just trying to sit with it and, refine it, polish it, and be like, okay, I think this section is a little weaker. Let's make that a little better. I have, maybe I could do something with this imagery or, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that was probably the hardest part with this one, was purely just trying to get the bars and the verses to really be really focused and really just, not technical, but really just, really like cohesive, efficient almost, where they just, are all tying into the concept, and there's not really like, oh, that bar doesn't really fit. It's just kind of like a filler. I didn't want filler in this. I wanted it to all be, make sense. So I think that was probably the hardest part, was just getting my verses, like, super locked in, all that stuff. So that is it for this episode of Dissect, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you haven't listened to this song or my album, Strangers in the Dark, definitely encourage you guys to go check that out. We got a link in the description. It means a lot to me if you choose to listen to that. That is going to be it for this episode of Dissect, guys. Thanks for watching. Peace.